I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and today I'm so thrilled to be talking to Wunmi Mosaku all about Sinners. And one of the first things that I wanted to talk about is I know that you initially only had 7 pages of the script, and it's that first scene where we see Annie and we see Smoke together. And it's such a beautiful scene that gives us so much history in just an instant between the two of them. And so I was interested in how, when you got those first few pages, how it gave you that breadth of history and that breadth of who Annie was potentially going to be on screen and through your performance eventually.
I mean, you learn so much about them, like you said. You learn about their grief, how much they understand each other. He doesn't have to say anything, and she knows exactly what's gone down in Chicago. And he, he bristles at that this woman who knows everything he can't hide from. The interaction with her and the two girls in the store, you kind of understand her place in the community, and that she's like a pillar in the community, and she has a lightness with them, this maternal energy with these two girls. Um, and then you learn about her faith. You learn about hoodoo, her prayer work, her root work, her grandmother. You know, her ancestry, in that scene, and how, and then her love, her commitment to his safety, and that she has been praying for him every single day, and his brother every day since the day that they left. I even feel like she knows today is coming. Like she knew he was going to arrive. I don't know. I just felt that. Like I always felt that when she walked outside. Like, why did she walk outside right then in that moment? She just felt him, and then also he doesn't ask for forgiveness, but she demands the truth, and that is all she needs in order to move forward, to be reconnected. Um, and then she calls him by his name. That wasn't originally written, actually. That was in the moment, and that's when I was like, Ryan Coogler is a genius. Like, he's a creative force because he just understands. He understands humanity and love so profoundly that he said to me, just call him by his name. Don't ask the question again. Call him by his name. And it broke the whole scene open. His response was different. And then, we just, the end of the scene just kind of, it was beautiful before, but then it was like elevated and heightened and honest. There was no smoke and mirrors. It was Annie and Elijah, you know.
It's such
Um,
a beautiful, tiny detail that just completely gives you everything about their history just through the fact that she calls him by his name. I love that detail.
mm, mm, I love that too.
And in amongst all those emotions as well, we also get that immediate sense of the pain that they share and how that was something that broke them apart, but it's also the thing that holds them together. And so, how did you find playing both sides of, yes, there's a distance because of it, but it's also a connection that only the two of us understand?
Mm. I feel like there was never a distance for Annie. Like, her he was always in her in her orbit. His aura never left her. I feel like she was always connected, and I feel like he was always connected. Like, I feel like his heart was always in that home. And there's another detail in that scene that I really love, that he picks up his pipe. He knows exactly where it is. It hasn't changed. It's in the exact same place it was 7 years ago. Um, I just wanted to add that because that was written in the scene. All those little things. Um, and yeah, I think that their her love for Smoke is so powerful that her spell, her mojo bag, works right until he takes it off. And that I feel like her love for him and his love for her is also part of her source. It's also part of her strength and power. That's why it works for him in a way it doesn't work for anyone else. So I don't know if I've ever felt like they were apart. I think she believes he's doing what he needs to do. And she understands that. And she's loving him through his grief, how he shows up in his grief. And if that's 7 years distance, she understands that that's what he needs and that's how he's grieving. And she respects that in a way. Does she respect what he does in those 7 years? Not necessarily, but she respects the space that he needs to take. Um, yeah, I just that kind of love and understanding is so it's so powerful and it's so profound and it's something that I really admire in her and I really admired in Ryan's imagination because that I'm like I don't think people can write love stories like that profound. And I felt like in 7 pages, like that was enough for me. That could be to me, it could be a short film. That's those 7 pages because I really believed in their pain. I really understood their pain. I understood their love and their grief, their communion and their discourse. Um, the things, their similarities and their differences in 7 pages. I feel like that was like a just I don't know who can write like that other than him. You know?
Yeah, it's incredible, and you were mentioning the magic and the spirituality of that, and the fact that it's also powered by her love for him in this really beautiful way. And I know that you did extensive amounts of research around this, but also that you worked specifically with a hoodoo consultant who worked on the film, with the idea of what would this specific spell and magic be that would go into that mojo bag that is the protector of him. And I was interested in how that part of the process for you kind of really helped in making it feel so connected.
I mean, meeting our hoodoo consultant Yvonne, I really was kind of in awe of. I was in awe of this practice that I had never heard of, and it really I felt so it felt so grounded. It felt so wise. It felt like familiar and um, simple in its spirit and complex in its like in the understanding of it and the learning of it. Um, I I I feel like when I did when I was with Yvonne, I really just wanted to learn. I wanted to know everything. I wanted to be a hoodoo priestess. Like I wanted that for myself, and learning about it just meant that I had held Annie in the most highest regard as well. I just didn't know. Like I feel like it's always kind of been around me in a way. The women in my life. And then I realized as I was playing Annie that the people who were coming, I was being drawn towards and being drawn towards me were in either initiated or closely related to the initiated. And so if I don't know, it felt like it was igniting something within me. Um and it was igniting the character like it was bringing it was bringing me closer to Annie and it made me I don't know it just made me approach her very differently than any other character. And I think it yeah, I don't know what I just lost my train of thought. Um yeah, yeah, but it brought me closer to Annie um personally. Like I felt like I was getting messages. I felt like I was more connected. I was having dreams and I felt like I had really clear messages. And in fact, one of my dreams that I had after my first day filming, I was speaking with Michael yesterday about it, and I was like, I thought it meant this, and I thought, oh, you know, but it was my first day playing Annie, and I thought it meant this, but today I know it means this actually. This dream came rushing back to me yesterday as I was speaking to him, and I was like, actually, this is what the message was, and this is what it was for. And I feel like Annie um just kind of ignites that in me and keeps me and yeah, just it got me in tune with something. She got me in tune with something that I didn't know I needed or had the capability of accessing. Yeah.
It's beautiful, especially because when you look at all the attributes of who she is as a character, and even as the story progresses, and once the vampire element does show up, she leads with this real maternal instinct and empathy. There's that dialogue where she feels empathetic of, they're forced to live in this space of hatred. They can't even enjoy the warmth of the sun every single day and the beauty of what that is anymore. And she still
Mm.
sees it as these are elements of family and people that I care about. And so once you got to those later scenes, how did you want to make sure that that was always how she was approaching things, even with the fact that it is ultimately vampires showing up on the door of the club?
I mean, it was all in the writing. I mean, it was all there, and you know, there is this you when you're when you hear vampire movie, horror movie, you think it's going to be ah, all the time, like and it's like constant fear. But the people that Ryan has he created it's not your typical vampire. It's not nothing senseless. So the fact that these people, these vampires, have their desires, their same human desires to be with their brother, to be with their lover, to be with their ancestors, and that they have the power to lure you in or lure them in. They know how to psychologically get into in tune with what you will align with. They can get into your brain. Um, I mean, the way that he has written these people, these creatures, um, there's a humanity there, and so it's not like you want the vampires to win, but you understand the vampires, right? You definitely understand Mary. You definitely understand her desire to be with Stack. You understand Stack coming for Annie. Because if Annie joins them, then Smoke's gonna join them. And it's like we get to live in this fellowship and love, outside of the Jim Crow South. They can finally be together and live freely, live it freely. But but at a huge sacrifice and a huge cost. Um, so yeah, that is his brother. That is Mary. These are the people we love. That is Cornbread. Like they know how to get under our skin. They know how to. They're not gone. They're just changed. But that change means they can't be with their ancestors, and that is something that Annie can't fathom. Her child is now her ancestor. Let me be with let me be with her, you know, um, and let they're still present. The ancestors are still present. They're still present within us, and and there is purpose. and it's our duty to to live our purpose. And being a vampire is not that. So it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking that these, it's not, they're not just gone. They're not gone. They're not released. They're here with or without the people that they love forever. With a but without their spiritual connectedness, and that is something she'd never compromise. Um, yeah, yeah, it wasn't hard to be empathetic about that because that sounds like hell. That's so against everything. They're still of this world with they're still of this world with all of its pain and inequality and ugliness and war and genocide, and they're still here. They still have to live here, um, without the sun, with without their without their without spirit, you know.
And you bring up such a great point in terms of those details that for Annie, such a huge part is I need to still have that ability to be with my ancestors, which, as you pointed out, includes her daughter. And obviously, it feels like so much of that goes into the conversation that she has with Smoke about if they get me, I want you to take me out so that this doesn't happen because this is more important. And did having that on the page and having that be such an intention for her help give you a lot of the emotion in the moment that you were filming it? Because you and Michael really had to ground the emotion while there's so much action going on directly around you in that moment as well, just in terms of filming it.
I mean, yeah, I mean that's all again all in the edit. That was a scene that we did on our own together. We in fact my daughter was on set that day, and I have a lovely picture of her and Ryan together at the billiards table. And so yeah, I it was about playing that scene. It was actually a very sacred, quiet environment when we were filming it. It was like it was just very focused. It was very focused, and the energy was yeah, it was peaceful. It was this is see this baby, this real baby. Let's 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 keep that in mind. It was yeah, that day was it wasn't as dramatic as it was in the edit in the final cut. Like it was a very Ryan really kept our moments like that, the moments where it was we talked about our loved ones, our lost ones, very sacred. And because of the nature of filming on IMAX and film and how long it takes to take each to change each magazine, it requires a lot of focus to keep the energy consistent, you know. Yeah.
It's such a testament to his filmmaking style and even just the way that he figured out the logistics of filming all of these scenes with Michael as the two parts. And it sounds like that was much more complex than just we're going to run the scene twice, that he would essentially be having to listen to the dialogue of the first version when going into the second version. And how did that create a very different way to have to kind of go through the motions of the scenes, essentially having to mime and mimic along and making sure that it was all about giving Michael what he needed for that process.
Mm. It's interesting because I really feel like I didn't really notice the twin work in that way. We played, he had his stand-in Percy Bell, who would play both the other twin. So we would just play the scene again. I feel very like we had such an easy job. It what being on the press tour and listening to Michael and Ryan talk about the twin days, I was like, oh, I guess it was really hard for them. For us, it was so easy. Like you play the scene with Percy and Mike, and then you play the scene with Mike and Percy. But then there were times when, you can't talk because of the timing. And so they play the playback back, right? And so you're meant to respond, you're meant to do what you were doing as the play in the same time, right? So they keep the playback running so you know your timing. But for some reason, I just really would just keep acting in the scene, and then my timing would be different. And then Michael would look at me and I'd be like, and then my line would start playing and I'd be like, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I was not very good at like not doing the scene. Like my pantomiming the scene. I would always be like replying and everyone's like, no, with me. No, it's a pantomime take. Like, oh shoot, yeah. Sorry. Um but I feel like I feel like I really only remember one twin day out of, I mean, there were loads, but I feel like I only really remember that one being the difficult one. Um, at the door, when Remick comes to the door. I feel like that was the hardest twin day for us, for me anyway, not for everyone else.
One of the other scenes with people at the door that was so great is the one where you have Cornbread, because again, to your point, that's their friend and they know it and they know it's Cornbread, but it's also not him anymore. And it's so great because there's so much humor in that scene as well. And Cornbread is so quintessentially himself. He's still making sure that he gets the money. But I love how much of a character moment it is between Annie and Smoke at the same time. There's that silent communication of her being like, be careful, like, don't do it, without ever saying a word out loud. And then also just the emotion of when he does stick his arm out, having to watch him get attacked and watch Cornbread try to grab him. And so, how did you feel that even though there was some levity and kind of friendship and kinship in that scene, that also actually it was really telling you a huge amount about Annie and Smoke again?
It honestly, that scene was one of the funniest scenes we shot the whole time. Like Omar was so hilarious. Like, I mean, the way it's funny, like when the way he brings his hand out, like because he can't cross the threshold, it would set us off so much. And so it's really interesting because actually a lot of that, there's so much concentration on playing the scene and not playing the humor that ultimately is happening too. The fish grease, the shut up, you drunk, all that. There was a lot of improvising in that scene, especially with the Omar and Delroy. Um, it's hard because it's like I don't want to ruin the movie magic, but there was some of those moments are the funniest moments for us, the hardest moments for us to stay focused. Um, and it's I'm glad that you can see all the communication and the unsaid um conversation that's happening between them. But but yeah, it was a feat because we wanted to laugh a lot.
No, it's such a great scene and such a memorable moment as well. And in talking about towards the end of the movie, the moment where Smoke has to drive the stake into her heart, um, it kind of feels like Annie's very accepting and very at peace. And again, it's, of all the people that are going to do it, at least it's him doing this to me. And so again, I was just interested in how you kind of found the space of a scene like that in the moment.
Oh, that scene again, there's so much. That is a scene where there's a lot going on around, and we're having to stay very focused and in our locked in. Again, because there's so much going on, I we really we were just together. Uh, Michael and I mean, I didn't get to move a lot because of the blood and the rigs and everything. but it was very much like being locked in and staying in the moment. We would play our song, Annie and Smoke's song. The set had to be like we tried to in between takes keep the energy as concentrated as possible. Um, but yeah, it was about locking in and really seeing first of all stack, stack. You're the same. He's got the same face, and he's the one responsible for me becoming a vampire. Like my, I mean, heartbreaking. That it had to be him, and yeah, I just felt like Annie and Smoke just were locked in. I feel like I was, yeah, we would kind of reach across the room to each other and be like locked in so that none of the other stuff, the stuff that has to happen, and lighting, camera, that we would just be in our bubble, um, and try and not let anything pierce it whilst we wait to turn over again.
You
Yeah.
mentioned just now that you had a song that you would play that was for Annie and Smoke. What was the song that you had together for this?
Well, we had a few, but the one that we played on set a lot was Sade by Your Side.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to ask about the final scene that we see right at the very end of the movie with the two of them. Because it's kind of that moment where Smoke is half between the living world and half between the dead world, and we see Annie with their daughter together. And what was the emotion that you just suddenly found going into a moment like that? Because I imagine it just encapsulated everything that you and Michael had built into these characters.
Yeah, that was a powerful day. That was a very emotional day. It was uh, yeah, it's hard to talk about that one actually. Um it felt private and um really I don't know, carefully uh we we tread we trod carefully, and you know he is in one world and I'm in another one. He's in one of pain and I'm in one of um peace, and so not to cross into each other's worlds until it's time. It's hard to kind of keep that. It's very hard. It's hard to not lead into each other. Um, so that was it was it felt I can't think of the right word, but it felt elevated in the level of um reverence and uh that we give the moment, but also we're not in the same world initially. So in to keep the two of us, his so he can play the whole scene, and then and then see us, because we kind of had to be there whilst he was in the other scene, part of the scene in with Hogwood. So yeah, that was technically and emotionally, I think, quite a hard day. Um, to balance the two worlds and the transition and the sadness and then the hope, the pain and then the peace. Yeah, yeah.
It's a beautiful scene, and you've built so many incredible emotions and layers and complexities into this character and into the history of everything that Ryan gave you on the page. So thank you so much. I appreciate you talking about it.
Thank you so much.